the book started with some documents that I found at an archive at Yale University, and they were very curious. They were a set of speeches that Gertrude Stein translated, or was trying to translate into English, speeches by Philippe Pétain, who was the chief of state of the pro-Nazi collaborationist Vichy regime in France during the Second World War. A few scholars had already known about these translations, but nobody had ever really asked the question, why was Gertrude Stein, the sort of icon of modern literature and art, a figure who we associate with radical experimental writing, with modernism at its most avant-garde, and certainly of late with a certain kind of lesbian or feminist identity, with progressive politics. She's kind of, in the last 20 or 30 years since she's been rediscovered, she's kind of taken on the role of this great mother figure for avant-garde experimental modernism in its best form. And so it was kind of shocking to find out that she was actually translating speeches for a pro-Nazi regime during the Second World War. And the question was, why? You know, why would somebody like Stein, and I mean, obviously another key part of this is a Jewish American woman who was obviously under great personal vulnerability during the war, why would she be translating these speeches for a pro-Nazi regime? There were a couple of possible answers that immediately sprang to mind when I started thinking about this project. The first one was that she probably may have been trying to do these translations as a way of protecting herself, as a way of sort of, covering her traces by helping out with the regime, by pretending to be a good citizen, and sort of hoping that she would be seen as somebody who was not a threat to the regime. And obviously this might have worked for maybe the first few months of the Pétain regime, but very quickly into the Second World War, into the Vichy regime, it became clear that it was a virulently anti-Semitic regime. And that somebody like Stein was actually under great personal risk. She started translating these speeches in 1941, so a good 18 months after the regime had already started. So it doesn't seem likely that she would have simply been translating the speeches in order to somehow to protect herself. There had to be other motivations. And then the question was, well, what kind of motivations? What was leading somebody like Gertrude Stein to support somebody like Philippe Pétain? And it's at that point that my book really gets started.